Hello there YouTube. Recently we hit 200 subscribers. And before you can watch today's crappy video, allow me to say thank you very much. As my way of showing my gratitude towards you, allow me to share a video that makes me laugh every goddamn time. Please stay safe and wear a mask. Yours sincerely, Daniel.
So is it any wonder people are afraid of technology?
Technology!
Slowly kisses passing by the river.
I did to my neighbor what they did to others. To start, I bought a house with the intention of doing a flip. When I moved in, the self-appointed block captain let me know who they were the first day. Sadly, they were my next door neighbors. I tried to be friendly, but listening to them I realized how horrible they were and tried to keep still be civil. My significant other kept saying just wait for it to be our turn. They bragged about, though, their contacts with the city, forcing people to make improvements on their houses, getting undesirable renters out of the houses, and just harassing people in general. As I worked on flipping my house, the wife became a worse thorn in my side. To start, she demanded I put up a fence so people would quit cutting through my yard and scaring her. Then, her and the husband demanded I take care of the weeds in the yard or they will do it and bill me. After that, a storm a tree scraped their shingles and they asked for $1,200 to replace them. The tree was there before I moved in, and by code they are responsible to cut back the branches to the property line. When I wouldn't pay, they had a relative jump my fence and cut the trees down. Needless to say, I began to ignore them, so she became a constant gnat and moved on to another target. Then one day, as I was tearing down my deck for a patio, I realized she put a feral cat colony on a section of my property. I had wondered why all the stray cats were around, and I finally found out. I reached out to the city and demanded it be removed, but they said she followed the law on getting it in place. As I tried to get it shut down, she began unhinged behavior, from standing in her window staring at me, yelling out the window at me, to hitting the fence with items to scare my dog. Here my revenge started. I started by filing a HRO harassment restraining order against the wife and had it granted ex parte with the evidence I provided. Of course she contested, as it was defamatory to her character. Before the hearing, the husband tried to physically intimidate me. So I filed one against him and it was also granted ex parte. In the hearing it came up that there was an HRO against the husband as well. They dogged being served until I had it published as a means of service. I started to make complaints about them and their house. Also, I made police calls when necessary. As I did this, the other neighbors began to realize they could do to them what they had done to them and others. For example, as I was having my front door replaced, needing a building work permit, I knew they were doing internal remodeling, so I called a city inspector and they were fined for not having permit. As she ranted at the inspector, he looked at my window and saw I had mine displayed. Their back porch became hoarded, so I made another call to a city inspector and they had to clear it out. Then they had a broken window on the porch door, so I called an inspector and they had to replace the door. Next, the paint on their house was peeling, so I called an inspector and they had to repaint. The inspector also found the wood underneath was rotted, along with their front porch was sloping. So, they needed to fix the front porch, sections of wood, and repaint. Through all this, they had up cameras to prove they were not doing the things I said, that is hitting the fence. They also pointed a camera at my backyard, as it was legal to point a camera into my yard, and a part of my HRO was her intrusive watching behaviors. I gave the camera the middle finger on my way to and from my garage. When she complained, with the city tiring of her, their response was she was admitting to intrusively watching me. The fight over the cat colony came to an end when I realized one of the cats had a serious disease, and I began to capture them and turn them into animal control. Don't worry, animal control was part of the feral cat program, so they would not be put down, but the neighbor would have to pay a fine to get each cat out or have the colony closed. Finally, I caught the sick one and it had rabies. Part of the program was for her to capture each new cat, have it vaccinated. Something she admitted to willing not doing on her GoFundMe for the colony. I soon had the GoFundMe shut down when I provided the evidence she was not using the funds as she stated they were going to be used. The city now had to act to close a colony. The person at animal control who wouldn't respond to my complaints was fired. The neighbors called in a city mediator who we met with, presented all the evidence and said we would not meet with them, and provided extremely racist tweets they made about neighbors. The city cut ties with them as community leaders. With their power to bully gone and having spent what I can only imagine in fines and repairs, like they did to numerous other neighbors. After 14 years they sold their house and moved out, way out to the suburbs where they only have one neighbor about 50 yards away. They knew I was wrapping up my flip and would be out in less than a year. Without being able to bully their neighbors, with people having their back, they seemed to have no further reason to stay. Needless to say, I did several more things to wear them down. Neighbor likes to park in front of my house. Okay then. This happened a few years ago. My neighbor started parking on the street behind my car, like literally inches, for no apparent reason. My neighbor has a driveway, empty, and also live 2 houses down the street. I don't have a driveway, so on-street parking is a must for me. So, after a few weeks, I asked if it was necessary to park so close when there was literally no cars on the street for over a 1/4 mile. He said no, but there's no law against it, with a big shit-eating grin on his face. A few weeks pass by, and my car gets hit because someone thought there was enough room to clear as his truck blocked the view of my car entirely. I see this happen, but unfortunately can't get a model or license plate number. I find my neighbor's email address, because I really didn't feel like talking to him, and asked him again if he could just park further down the road, closer to his house. He replied, nope. Suck on it. Okay. I had lived here for quite a long time, and never had any issues with him or any other neighbor. I keep to myself, never make noise, don't have any noisy pets or parties, etc. His truck has his business name on it. Google it. Find out it's his own business. Lots of Yelp reviews, BBB rating, etc. All these links point to his website. I go to check his website, it doesn't load up. I head over to Whois and see that the domain isn't registered. I snag it. Before I think of what to do with it, I Google the owner's name and find out he's been convicted of murdering a child 20-ish years ago. I find a handful of links that details his story rather explicitly. I copy, paste all those links into an email to him. A throwaway account so he can't just reply to me, as I deleted it afterward. Said something like, well, if you want to be a jerk for no reason, I just bought your business domain. Here's all the links I plan on posting on it. I don't have to list your business name because all of your business listings across the internet have this URL pointing to it. Keep parking like a jerk. Yes, it's legal, but you are willfully doing this just to annoy me. I legally bought your domain, and can legally link these articles. Park behind me again, and I'll launch it. Within an hour his truck was moved into his driveway. He asked me for the domain, and I told him when either you move, or I move, I'll hand it over. Until then it'll remain offline. Edit. Only thing fake was the time frame. This happened last week, not a few years ago. He was originally charged with capital murder, but his lawyer convinced him of a plea deal for manslaughter because they have way more than enough to convict you of capital murder. For those saying this is fake, I'm putting my house on the market in 2-3 months. When it sells, I'll come back and post all the news articles, as I won't be anywhere near here, so doxing will be much more difficult. I never understood this phenomenon that causes people to play games with their cars. I moved out to the suburbs 3 years ago and have never seen it so prevalent when there's enough parking to accommodate 3x as many cars. In the city, people would be shitty sometimes because there's never enough spaces for everyone and you gotta take yours, but literally everyone has a garage, driveway and enough curbside space for 3 more cars out here. This could possibly be its own post, but in relation to your story I'll type it here. A new neighbor moved in last winter, a house over from my connected neighbor, and we started to notice weird behavior. Nothing big, just dude liked to park in front of people's houses and then walk to his house real slow, or park directly on lawn. I have a corner property and can easily park 8 cars around the perimeter of my yard. Since I have a garage, I couldn't care less who parks around my house. But if it sticks out and looks like the person is going out of their way to be ignorant, it irks me a bit. Like when new neighbor man started parking real close to the entrance to the communal lot where my garage is located. I didn't really even care about that until I saw him get out of his car, check to see if it was close enough to be a pain, then get back in and pull up closer. There's no reason to do that unless he wanted to purposefully be a dick. I asked my connected neighbor what his deal was and he had issues with him too, saying the guy was driving into our communal lot and over his grass to park in the backyard. I guess when he asked the asshole not to do that, the guy got real angry that he couldn't reach his yard any other way. My neighbor told him just to reseed the grass he fucked up and there wouldn't be problems, but the asshole refused. A few weeks later, I see the guy backing an old shitty collapsible trailer camper into our lot and across my neighbor's backyard. My neighbor was on vacation so I called him and told what was going on and he got super pissed, thanks me for the call and said, "I'll fix this." After the camper was parked in the guy's yard, I started seeing construction in my neighbor's yard a day or two later. I guess he had decided to build a fence around his property, preventing the guy from driving over his grass and also making the guy's shitty camper a permanent yard ornament because there was no longer vehicle access to his yard. I've yet to see the guy take his camper apart piece by piece to remove it, but unless he pays to have my neighbor's fence removed and rebuilt, that's the only way it's gonna be moved.